Hello and good morning. This is Jamie with Stonemeyer Games, and I am so happy to be here with you on Wednesday, July 7th. We're in July now. Yeah, I guess last week was the last week of June. Last week was our e-newsletter week, and today is just a regular week where I'm here to talk about Stonemeyer Games news, answer any questions that you have, as long as they're not spoiler questions, and discuss some random topics, random things going on. Good morning, Tony. Thanks for joining us. You're usually first to comment. Well done there. Let's start out with chocolate of the day. I am absolutely hooked on, even though it's not my favorite ice cream in the world, I love the gelato at Gelato Doriso. I mentioned that for no good reason. It's amazing gelato. I don't need to put a caveat on it. It's amazing gelato. And there's a place in St. Louis called Gelato Doriso on the hill. And it isn't exactly my chocolate of today, but I've just been hooked on it recently. Whenever I'm in that area of the hill, I go by and I get their ice cream, and I always get the chocolate because the chocolate tastes like chocolate pudding. I really really love their ice cream. So I don't know if you had gelato or if you have good gelato in your area, but have you had any cold treats during this hot summer? And what is your favorite local cold treat, local to you, easy to get local cold treat? Mine, I think I'm going to say is Gelato Doriso, although I do also love Jenny's, which is fairly close to us. Yeah, so that's my chocolate, my treat of the day. What else is going on here? So one of the things that we've been working on a lot is getting ready for the Rolling Realms announcement coming up soon. So Rolling Realms is a game that I designed during the early days of the pandemic and play tested it live with you and hundreds and thousands of people worldwide as I kind of honed the different realms in this infinitely scaling roll and write game. And I wasn't planning on printing it, but I decided that it would be fun to print it. I thought, the game actually worked out to be a lot of fun. And while it started out as a really light game, it ended up being a little bit more substantial to fit the Stonemaier Games mold. And yet it is still really easy to teach and learn and play. And so we are working on the preparation for that. We've already printed it. It's in the freight shipping process right now. And I was just talking to Rodney Smith at Watch It Play today. There will be a Watch It Play video for it. I'm just planning ahead for that. We'll announce it officially in early August, even though I'm spoiling it now. I think I've mentioned this on our website that we are making a printed version, so it's not really a spoiler. And then we'll do the pre-order. If everything goes well with freight shipping, we'll do the pre-order in early September. That is subject to change in case freight shipping gets really crazy, which I kind of anticipate it will. But I'm hoping we can stick with that early September pre-order for Rolling Realms. And I look forward to sharing all the stuff about that game with you in the near future. Uh, so Lucas asked, so one of the things that I don't do on these live casts, even though I appreciate your curiosity, is I don't reveal spoilers about stuff that I haven't revealed yet. So Lucas is curious about the viticulture expansion, the tapestry expansion. Obviously, I'll talk about that stuff when I'm ready to announce those expansions and announce the details of those expansions. So I appreciate your curiosity, but I won't reveal spoiler stuff like that until I start talking about it. So stay tuned for later this year for the tapestry expansion. That's when I'll talk about that. And then in sometime in 2022 when I talk about the viticulture expansion. Chris asked about my dad and my cats. Chris, I always appreciate you asking about that. My dad is actually getting a biopsy today. He's in the hospital right now, not for anything. It is terrible. It's cancer, but he is not hospitalized today. He is just getting that biopsy today for a new lump that they found, and they are looking into that today. And he has to spend the day in the hospital because they need to monitor him throughout the day for this type of biopsy. So he's doing well, but also in the hospital, so that's not great. And I hope he's hanging in there in the hospital today. I had talked to him just a couple days ago, and he seems to be in good spirits. He actually played soccer the other day. He looks like he's in good health, and he's staying as active as he can with a lot of energy. But we'll see what this biopsy reveals. And the cats are doing great. Biddy is still loving. You can't see it. It's slightly off camera here. This is Biddy's normal chair. There's a new chair that I got for myself, a desk chair that Biddy has really been enjoying lately. Slightly off camera here. He is almost taken over that chair. I have to bribe him to get out of the chair. Cynthia is joining us from Meeple Source. Cynthia, thanks for dropping by. Carol says Dice Tower just announced during their online event that Dune Imperium has an expansion coming. Ooh, that's awesome. And Carol also said the Queen's Dilemma is in development. Wow, that's awesome news. This is two huge. So the King's Dilemma is one of my favorite legacy games ever, and one of my favorite games that I played this year. And Dune Imperium is also one of my favorite games that I played this year. I started playing it last year, so that is awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Carol. That is really exciting. Dune Imperium expansion, and I'm taking this as a spin-off of the King's Dilemma, the Queen's Dilemma. That is really really cool. Rick says, is it normal for a manufacturer to ask for a deposit pre-Kickstarter of 50% of the production cost? Pre-Kickstarter, it is not usual. No, I would say it is standard for a manufacturer to ask for 50% upfront before they start printing. But that's after you say, okay, we are definitely printing this. Here is the quantity that we're making. This is my purchase order, basically. Make this game for me. And they come back to you and say, okay, we'll make this game for you, but you have to put 50% down. But to do that before the Kickstarter, when you haven't actually issued that order yet, you haven't actually told them how much you want, how many games you want, is not normal. I would not say that is normal, and I wouldn't do that because you might place an order for 1,000 games before the Kickstarter, and then the Kickstarter does really well, and you need 3,000 games, and you have to place another order after that. That doesn't make sense at all. It hurts your economies of scale. So don't do that. Designer Francesco Testini is joining us today. Thanks for dropping by, Francesco. Naziz has a question. As a designer, is there a game mechanism that you'd never use? I'm hesitant to use the word never. There's a lot of stuff that I avoid doing. Like I avoid turns that take a really long time. I avoid, if I can, whenever possible, I avoid having a card with text that you have to read that's all the way across the table that you have to read, that's important to the game that you have to read, without having also icons on that card to help you remember what that text does. I played a very high profile game recently that does that in spades, and it baffles me that they didn't include icons to cue you into what that text is doing because it makes the game much less accessible. Those are, I mean, so there are elements of games that I don't do, that I avoid. But I wouldn't say there's like a general mechanism, even like roll and move. There are ways to do roll and move that are clever and fun, that give players interesting choices. Like I'm sure there's a way that you can make a great roll and move. In fact, I'm sure some of you could think of a great roll and move game in the comments here that just works and is fun and it has agency and has all the makings of a great modern board game. So yeah, I would say it's hard for me to say I would never use a particular mechanism, but they're probably out there. I'll answer a few more questions here and then talk about one of my topics. I'll jump back and forth today as usual. Carlos says, I've mentioned that I want to create an expansion or another game of Red Rising once the second trilogy is complete. But does that mean that you could aim its release alongside the final book? Probably not. I mean, that would be awesome, but I don't want to, I don't, like, I want to respect our arrangement with Pierce Brown. Our agreement isn't that that I get spoilers, that I get advanced copies of the books or anything like that. And so I'm a little hesitant to ask because I would need to read that last book, and I would need Alex to read that last book, and it might impact spoilers for playtesters as well. So I just don't see that happening. I think that's too much for me to ask such a big release to have that information in advance and to have so many people exposed to at least adjacent information to that final book. So I think we won't really even start the design process until after we read that book. Yeah. Oh, Ben got his signed card. So Ben doesn't even own Scythe. That's great. So yeah, one of the things that we did recently, I announced this to champions, but it is available for everyone. That on our website now, I basically recently I signed a bunch of cards from our games. I signed a bunch of them and we put them up on our website. You can't request a specific card, but if you add one of these cards to your website, and it's add-on only, so you can't just order one of the cards. You have to order something else on our website. Don't go out of your way to do it, but if there's something else you want on our web store, you can order it, and you can include a signed card, a random signed card from one of our games in that order. And yeah, I don't know. I thought it'd be fun. I know it's not for everybody, it's not for most people, but I thought it'd be fun for some people. So if you want a signed card from me, then you can get that on our web store now. And I'm realizing as I'm saying this that I mentioned a bunch of like stipulations to champions when I talked about it, but I don't know if I listed them all on our web store. Things like you can't request a certain card. You just can't. All the cards are jumbled together. We can't ask that of fulfillment centers to find a very specific card or even a specific card from a specific game. And then it has to be add-on, those types of things. So I'm going to make a little note to myself about the promo card listings to make sure I have all that information there so there's no confusion in the description of that product on our website. If you search on our web store how can you search for it? I think if you search for the word signed or random signed, I think that'll come up on our web store. Tony says he enjoys a soft serve Italian ice chain in Pennsylvania called Rita's. They put it in a cup, and in the middle of it, they add a soft serve vanilla frozen custard. The best flavor is Swedish fish. That sounds really good. I've had something like that in Hawaii where they had the soft serve next to shaved ice, and it was really, really good. Uh, some people are with me, wishing me wishing my dad best wishes. Why is that hard to say? So thank you for saying that. I really appreciate that. Keith says after Keith asked for some tips last week about how to introduce My Little Scythe to people, and namely his daughter, and he says his daughter can't stop playing and winning My Little Scythe. That's awesome, Keith. I'm glad you guys are having fun with that. Mackenzie is joining us from the Meeple Street. Hi, Mackenzie. Chris says, what's my favorite song from Bo Burnham's Inside? Yeah, this is one of the topics I talked about on my personal blog at jamiestegmeyer.com recently. We watched the Netflix special that has been very highly acclaimed and recommended by a bunch of different friends. It is I don't want to call it a comedy special, it is a musical special, really, from Bo Burnham that includes some comedic elements and some very dark elements, really. You delve deep into I think how Burnham is feeling and how people are feeling when they are stuck inside for a long period of time, when they feel like the outside world is dangerous and the only safe place is the inside of their home, as many of us have felt for the last year. Delves into depression, anxiety, goes to a lot of dark places, but it also has some levity in the beginning of it, namely. I enjoyed two of the sketches in particular. One was the one with the sock puppet. I don't remember the name of the song, but there's a sketch with a sock puppet that's really, really clever. And there is a sketch, not a musical number, but there's a sketch where Burnham does a reaction video to his own video, and it goes some really clever places after that. I don't want to spoil what happens next, but those two things I think are worth watching by themselves. But if you enjoy musical comedy and you're intrigued by what happens after that, because it becomes much less comedic for the second half of the special, I want to warn you about that if you haven't watched it. Then I think it is. I think it's worth watching. I've thought a lot about it since watching it. Brandon says Cubitos is a great roll and move type game. You're right. Yeah, Brandon, that's a fantastic example. Yeah, Cubitos shows that roll and move can be done in a really, really clever way with plenty of agency, plenty of fun decisions. There's push your luck there. It's not purely that you just roll the dice and you do the thing the dice say. You have choices involved after you roll those dice. And yeah, great example there, Brandon. Thank you for bringing that up. Tim says, if you don't have a lot of custom inserts, can you also use the nesting box to carry some wine along with the game? I think some wine bottles might fit in the box, and I'm glad you brought that up, Tim, because yesterday I posted on our website and on the Wingspan Facebook group the update for the fourth prototype of the Wingspan nesting box. To be very clear up front, Wingspan nesting box is just a box and an organizer designed to hold all past, present, and future Wingspan content. In addition to that, some custom content. We can't accommodate like every custom thing ever made for Wingspan, but we've designed it to fit as much of that stuff as possible. And of course, it holds sleeve cards. That's the thing. People ask that all the time. Yes, of course, it's industry standard that a custom tray and insert and organizer is going to hold sleeve cards. I think we can stop asking that question at this point. But we got the fourth prototype, and I have some fun trays to show you here today. So I changed a few things. We got a lot of great feedback in the last round of testing for the third prototype. And what we decided to do is create a tray that is specifically used for setup. So here's the setup tray. If you can see, hopefully I won't tip anything over on camera. But this is a setup tray. It holds two sets of dice, one for Oceania, one for the core game and any expansions that you use those dice with. It holds plenty of gold tiles, and I have 7 compartments for player tokens. So you can see those player tokens here. Why 7? Because, I don't know, someday we might add more players, and because there's room on it, I want to be ready for that. We don't know if that'll happen, but if it doesn't happen, there are 2 extra spaces. You can put something else in there, but for now, there's only 5 spaces needed. So this is the tray that you'll pull out during setup, and then you'll put this tray away because you won't need it on the table anymore. And instead, you'll pull out these slightly slimmer trays. They take up less space that include the stuff that you need during setup. And this one, I should be able to tip over here. So yeah, this has a long row for eggs. It holds over 100 eggs per compartment. And there is separators for the 6 different food types down here. There are 2 of these trays, so you can put one on either side of the table. They hold plenty of stuff. All the stuff that you'll ever need to hold is in here. And in the future, if we ever do add another, say we add a 7th food type. There's no plan to do that, but it's possible. You just mix it in with one of these. Like at some point, you will just have to say, okay, I'm going to have to mix these two food tokens together in the same compartment. That might happen, but I think this is the best solution to so that for now, for what we know that we have for now, they fit really well in these compartments, and they're plenty deep enough to hold other food types in the future if necessary. So there are two identical trays like this. The third tray is one that you've already, or the fourth tray really, because there's one setup tray, two food and egg trays, and then there's another tray for the middle section of the layer, the middle layer, that is just essentially a standard card tray, but deeper than normal. We just made it as deep as possible to fit in that layer to hold as many cards as possible. And again, yes, it holds sleeved cards, as does the entire box, as does every professionally made organizer. I'm really excited about that. Oh, and I missed the final piece of this tray. So we designed this tray so that the first player token fits right in there in the middle. And there will be a lid on this tray too. I don't have that to show you, but there will be a lid on that one too. So we're very close to finishing the prototype stage for the nesting box, which again is just a big box and an organizer. There's no gameplay content in this box. And we're hoping to go to print soon and that it will be available fairly early in 2022. Probably February, March, April, around that time. Yeah. Richard Bliss is here. Hey, Richard, good to see you. He says, our cat isn't drawn to our game playing, he just sleeps. But turn on a video call and he's right in front of the camera. Cats are weird that way, aren't they? Biddy actually used to get really angry whenever I got on Skype calls. He didn't like that I was talking to someone else. Maybe it was because I had the speaker on. He doesn't like speaker phones. Yeah, and then odd that cats can really start paying attention when you turn on the camera. Francis says, what's your 3 favorite games in your collection? And I can't pick my games. My 3 favorite games in my collection. Uh, you know, so I do my top 10 list of games twice a year. I'm coming up on another one. It's July right now, but I do it in August and February typically. So based on the previous list, 3 of my favorite games in my collection that weren't designed or published by me. Not role player. Role player is up there. Role player could be up there. It's definitely top 10. I'm not sure if it's top 3. Clank is the one I was looking at. Clank is perennially in my top 3. I really enjoyed Clank. What else? I'll have to look up what was in my top 10 in February. Top 10 in February was, so I think Clank was up there. What else was up there? Sorry, I gotta click over to my website here to see. Okay, favorite games as of February. Number 1, I'm just checking to see if these games are actually in my collection, because not all games that I absolutely love are even in my collection. Number 1 was Seven Wonders Duel, that's in my collection. Number 2 was Clank, which is in my collection. Number 3 was Lords of Waterdeep, which isn't in my collection. Number 4 was Castles of Mad King Ludwig, which is coming. I backed the deluxe Kickstarter. Number 5 was Quacks of Quedlinburg, which is not in my collection. Number 6 was Fantasy Realms, which is in my collection. So of those that I actually have in my collection right now would be Seven Wonders Duel, Clank, and Fantasy Realms. Let me I jump over to my topics real quick, and then I'll jump back to the questions. This is fun to be here with you today and talking about this stuff. Thank you for being here. We have a playtest coming up tomorrow for a project that I have not announced, but we've been playtesting this project quite a bit and having a lot of fun with it. Yesterday, obviously, I spent a lot of time working on the nesting box. What have I been playing? Oh, played a lot of games this weekend, actually. And I filmed a lot of videos about these games yesterday. Played a game called Groundhog Day, which I didn't know existed until I posted my recent video about Tranquility, and someone recommended it. Groundhog Day is kind of a cooperative game in the style of The Mind, where you're trying to put down ascending cards, but it also has a time loop or a repeated day element to it. Really clever game from Funko. Really enjoyed that. Abandon All Artichokes, really clever game about starting out with a terrible deck building hand and trying to have a really good hand in Abandon All Artichokes. Dice Miner is probably my favorite of the new crop of games that I played, even though I played some really good ones here. But Dice Miner is a recent Kickstarter that I got. It's a dice drafting game with a bunch of custom dice. It hits all my sweet spots. I really enjoy Dice Miner. Crash Octopus was a zany, fun dexterity game that we played. And we played City Builder as well. City Builder was a really neat tile placement game that we played this past weekend. And we also played Charterstone. Finally, after over like 15 months of not playing Charterstone. So I started a campaign before the pandemic. We got through game 6, and it has been sitting in the inside of our gaming table for the last 15 to 16 months. And we finally got people together, you know, immunized. I'm forgetting the word. Why am I forgetting the word? Uh, we are vaccinated. We were vaccinated from the virus. We got together this past weekend and played games 7 and 8 of Charterstone and had a lot of fun getting that back to the table, even though it's been on the table the whole time. Yeah, I think those are the games that I played the most recently. Yeah, I have some other topics that I'll cover in a minute, but yeah, I want to talk about those games real quick. Reed says, I figured you'd have a blog on this maybe, but I've been looking for good books on game design and theory and history of games and board games. Got any list or recommendations? Some good games good books that come to mind. Jeff Engelstein has some good books on game design, as does Ignacy Trebuchek. They have some good books on game design that I really enjoy. Gabe Gabe Barrett from the Board Game Design Lab has one. Joe Slack has one. These are all about game design and theory. There is an upcoming book that I don't think has been announced yet that will be good about this topic. And history of games and board games. I don't know about that. Does anyone in the comments have any recommendations for great books about the history of board games? Anthony says, when you took a note to remind yourself that, it made me think. Do you have top productivity tips that have worked for you? Top productivity tips. Um, let's see if I can come up with something off the top of my head. It's not something it's so ingrained in my processes now that I don't think all that much about it. But I make a lot of lists, basically. I use sticky notes to jot down lists of things that I need to do on every day. So that's my daily list. I have a long spreadsheet of things that I need to do at different times to prepare for a game launch. Long, like it's well over 100 entries, 100 different rows at this point that I use. Um, yeah, it's a lot of lists. It's just a ton of lists. And I don't know if they keep me productive, but let me prioritize different things and also have a sense of accomplishment every day, especially when I'm crossing things off my little checklist here. I use a platform, an app called Basecamp to create lists of blog entries that I want to write or videos that I want to film. I don't know, the idea of checklists and lists has really helped me because otherwise I'll forget everything. I need to write it down in a list or I will forget about it. And it also helps me if I put something in a list that isn't ready for me to create yet, but I have it on the list, I can add to it on that list until I realize that it's ready or it's time for me to write about it or film a video about it. That really helps. And in those regards, I should probably mention the blog post and videos that I've filmed recently. My video this past weekend was about game tutorials, my top, I think, 9 game tutorials, games that I have sat down and learned and played purely by opening up the tutorial and having it teach me how to play as we're actually playing the game. There are more than 9, but there are only 9 that I've actually used in that way. I also did blog posts on Thursday about a new page on our website called Stuff We Love. The basic idea of this is that at Stonemaier Games, we love a lot of stuff beyond the stuff that we make, and we want to share it with you. This is kind of a core philosophy of what I do on Instagram and my YouTube channel, but I wanted to involve the other people that work at Stonemaier Games, Alex and Joe and Alan. And so we have a Stuff We Love page on our website now that you can go to and just check out random stuff that we love. Some of it's game related, some of it's not game related. I have a post about that on Thursday that will give you that link. And the other post I did the other day was about, what was it about? It was about, mental and personal health. I'm a little late for Mental Health Awareness Month, but the idea of being aware of my own health has been something that I've struggled with for a long time. Just the awareness part of it and realizing when I've had those moments where I've fallen out of health, of good, whether it's mental or physical health, or when I'm in a bad place. I'm not going to realize that. I'm not going to be aware of that. I want to get better at that. I think that's so important to be aware of it so I know that there's something that I need to address. And so I wrote about that and shared some personal examples on Monday's blog post and had some really touching and insightful comments on that post as well from other people. Tim says I asked about treats of the day. He says, I've been enjoying root beer floats lately, even though I haven't had soft drinks in years. Tim, I can absolutely relate to that, actually. I haven't had soda in a couple of years now. But I still occasionally, especially in the summer, I crave floats. I really love root beer floats. And I had a coffee soda float the other day from a local place called Caldy's. That was really good. Tim says, what's my favorite Reiner Knizia game? He said, we played all of My City over the holiday weekend. That's awesome. My City is on my list of games that I really want to play. Ra would be my favorite of his games, though. I love Ra. I'm going through comments right now about the nesting box stuff that I just showed you in a second. Um, Shakid says, "Will the nesting box include a place for the existing card trays?" Yes, that's the bottom layer of the box. You can see photos of that on our website. David says, "In viticulture, your parents are featured on two of the Mama and Papa cards. What were their names?" My mom's and dad's names are Jay and Margot. Rafa says, "Have I watched any football matches of Euro 2020?" And yes, 2020 is correct on that. I think they kept the year because it was supposed to happen last year. And yeah, well, I haven't watched full matches, but I watched all of the highlights, and I followed it very closely. I came very close to actually winning a pool for Euro 2020, but I'm going to finish, I think, in third place. But yeah, I'm excited about England versus Denmark today. That's a huge game. I'd be happy with either of those teams winning, and I wish them the best of luck against Italy. Italy's played really well in the tournament so far. Justin's working on a board game club at his local library. He talked about that recently with me, and he's trying to get. He's excited about the positive reaction. That's great. That's great. And Justin, I think it's wonderful that you took that proactive stance and said, "I want this to exist. I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to try to make this happen in conjunction with my local library. I'm going to show the library that people want to use this space for gaming." That's awesome, Justin. Shakay says, "Do I have an academic degree?" I'll read the rest of your comment in a second. A brief answer is I have a 4-year college degree in international business. He says, "I just got my BED last night after 10 years of struggle." Well, congratulations. That's wonderful. After 10 years, that's awesome that you stuck with it and made that happen. He says, "I've run my own company for the last 12 years and it hasn't held me back at all, but I felt it was a personal shortcoming and I'm happy to have finally accomplished this goal." Congratulations on doing that. That's wonderful. Jim also got the game Groundhog Day for his parents because they love the movie, and he says it's quite fun. Yeah, I had never heard of it at all, but I love the Groundhog Day. I love the time loop theme in general, and I love I love the mind. So I love a little twist on the mind that it provides. We've really had a lot of fun with it over a very short period of time. I've already played it 4 or 5 times. Patrick says, "We've been playing Between Two Cities more lately. Any plans for another expansion? I enjoy it solo because it's quick and easy." We don't have plans for another expansion. I would consider the game somewhat complete at this point, um, but I'm glad you're loving it. I'm glad you're having fun with it. Rafa says, "What TV shows are you currently watching and books are you currently reading?" I am reading right now the second book in the Way of Shadows series. I forget the name of the series, that's the first book in the series, The Way of Shadows by Brent Weeks. And what am I watching right now? Jumping around from a few different shows. We're watching Physical on Apple TV. I'm watching I Think You Should Leave, which just came out on Netflix yesterday. We're watching Eliza Glazer's sketch show on Netflix, a little bit here and there. We're watching The Nevers on HBO. That's our nighttime show right now. And we have a few other nighttime shows lined up. But yeah, I think that covers all the things that we're watching right now. We finished The Irregulars recently on Netflix. And what else did we finish recently? Finished Mythic Quest recently on Netflix as well. But I'm always open to recommendations. If you guys have any recommendations for great shows, I consider a lunchtime show to be a 20 to 30 minute show and a nighttime show to be a 40 to 50 minute show. We also watched The Tomorrow War on Amazon Prime this past weekend, and I really enjoyed it. I think it was a fun alien movie with some surprising moments of humor and fun action and quite good special effects. So yeah, I had fun watching The Tomorrow War this past weekend. Maddie says, "What games are you most excited for that aren't out yet?" I always struggle to answer this question. The easiest way for me to answer is to look at the things that I backed on Kickstarter and say that I'm excited about those things. But I'm terrible at remembering games that are coming out in the near future. Yeah, I'm not good at that. But let's see, what is a game that I know is coming out quite soon that I'm excited about? Well, I recently, here's one. I know this barely counts, but I've been following the announcements for the new Magic the Gathering set that's based on Dungeons and Dragons, and it just seems really clever. I think they did a fantastic job with it. So I'm really excited about drafting that when it comes out in the near future. I've pre-ordered a few draft packs of that. There's some suggestions here about game design, and two people actually mentioned Justin Gary's book, think like a game designer back to back. That's awesome. Yeah, Justin Gary is a very talented designer. He designed one of my favorite games, Shards of Infinity, as well as I think he was involved with Ascension, maybe Star Realms. Maybe he was a developer on Star Realms. He's working on a new game that's kind of like Keyforge. Great designer. Patrick says, always start a checklist with create checklist. That way, once the checklist is finished, you can check it off. That's great. I like that. Tony says, you've indicated in the past that the types of games you're usually not drawn to, like take that games or games where you just fight and kill. Um, yeah, those are category. Yeah, I actually have a whole video about exceptions. So I have a video about types of mechanisms or themes that I usually don't enjoy, but then I list the exceptions to those rules, that, or not rules, but there's exceptions to those preferences, games that I actually do enjoy in those genres. Tony says, what is one game that you assumed you would not enjoy when you first sat down with it, but were surprised that you actually did like it? Yeah, that's exactly what that video was all about. I've been making a list, we're talking about lists today. I've been making a list to revisit that video. Let's see what my other exceptions are, because I have a few of them on here that I think I'm preparing a new, I might have to search here, exceptions. Okay, I usually don't like trivia games, but I really enjoy wits and wagers. That's one of them. I usually don't get excited about pick up and deliver games, but Yado makes pick up and deliver a lot of fun, a ton of fun. Uh, I also don't usually enjoy games where most of the decisions that you're making in the game, or a lot of the deep decisions, are made during setup. But I also really enjoy Stratego. I think Stratego has wonderful choices that you make during setup. So there are a few of them. I don't know if I went into those games assuming that I wouldn't enjoy them. Although maybe Wits and Wagers might fit into that category. I'm not good at trivia, and so when I hear about a trivia game, I generally go into it thinking, let's get this over with, or give me a beer. But Wits and Wagers is actually a lot of fun for a non-trivia person like me. Tim is excited about Distilled on Kickstarter. Yeah, Dave was a participant in our virtual design day last year, and I'm excited to see Distilled doing so well on Kickstarter right now. Scott's watching The Expanse on Amazon Prime. Just looking through what people are saying here. Justin says, in regards to your designs, when you design a game and it's finished, are the expansions already in planning stage, or do you wait to see reactions before you plan any expansions? Usually, so my general design philosophy is I put everything that is fun and that works into the core game. I don't hold anything back. There's nothing that I'm waiting for later. And usually when I'm done designing a game, I need a break from it. Just like I don't immediately go to the thought of, oh, what's next for this game? I go to a place of, I need a break from this. I want to work on something else for a little while. And then sometimes I wait all the way until the game actually comes out, and then I start thinking about expansions. Sometimes it happens before then too, but I always need a break after the game enters production before I even start thinking about the idea of expansions. Yeah. Zach says, did you watch the publisher announcements on the Dice Tower Summer Spectacular? No, could someone post a link to that here? I must have missed that. I have not seen that, and Carol mentioned some major announcements here about Dune Imperium and the Queen's Dilemma that are really exciting to me, so I'm very curious about that. Rafa also recommends The Line of Duty if you haven't watched it. I know you enjoyed Bodyguard. Yeah, Rafa, you may have actually recommended this before. Someone else did on my blog when I talked about how much we enjoyed the Bodyguard. But I couldn't find Line of Duty on any of the streaming platforms that we have. Maybe I missed it. If there is one that has, I'll make a note of that. I'll look it up again. Line of Duty, so we can find that. Tonka says some board game companies like Leader Games and Red Raven have a consistent art style for their games. Have I thought about this for Stonemaier Games? I love that those companies do that. And there was a time where I considered just hiring an artist full time for Stonemaier Games, but I think different worlds require different art styles. I don't want to be locked into a certain art style, and so there have been times that I've considered it, but I don't think that's something that we're going to do because we delve in so many different worlds of Stonemaier Games. Patrick recommends the show Upload. Yes, we have watched Upload, and I also really enjoyed it. That was a fun one to watch on Amazon Prime. Giovanna says, is there a release date or pre-order date for the nesting box? There isn't at this point. We haven't even entered production yet. We haven't finished the prototype. But it should be sometime in early, I don't want to say mid-2022, like somewhere between early and mid-2022 is when we will have already made it and do our pre-order. Because we do our pre-orders after we've actually made the product so that when you pre-order it, you receive it a week or so later. Or you receive a shipping notice soon after that. Not necessarily a week or so later, but very soon afterwards. Giovanni says he wants to wait to get the European expansion and Euphoria and want to get the nesting box together to save on shipping. You'll have to wait a while to do that. And I don't know if you'll see a huge cost savings because the box is massive. And so, I mean, you'll maybe save a little bit there depending on where you're shipping to, but it's going to be an expensive shipment to send to some places because of the weight of the box. The weight and size, well, the size is more of it than the weight. It's a big box. What are some other things going on here? I got to play disc golf with Megan and another couple this past weekend. We went on Sunday morning, had a great round of disc golf. We played doubles and had a great time. I made my latest foray. So I may have mentioned this before. I've been making Rice Krispie style treats, but out of other cereals. And I made one this past weekend that used Cocoa Krispies, Golden Grahams, chocolate chips, and peanut butter chips. And it was absolutely delicious. Really, really good. It was kind of like having a s'mores in a Rice Krispie style bar. Really, really tasty. Really enjoyed that. I think that's all the topics that I was going to cover today. So I've covered everything. I'm just here for I guess, questions and random stuff that you want to talk about for the rest of my time today. Omid says, oh, he just has a nice compliment, but I'll read it since it is the latest comment. He says, thanks for all the extensive blog posts and articles regarding board game development. They're such great resources. I've been slogging through them while designing something ambitious. It keeps me inspired. I'm so glad to hear that. I always wonder when someone gets to our website and sees how many articles there are, if they're going to be intimidated or inspired. And I love that you chose to be inspired. And I guess it's okay if you're also intimidated by a little bit, because it's a lot of content to go through, a lot of content to consume. But maybe it gives you a little daily dose of information, something to think about, and some motivation to move forward with whatever you're excited about right now with your passion project. Philippe says, is there a game you've published that hasn't done as well as expected? Is there a way to fix that with an expansion? I generally don't think games. It's really hard to revive a game with an expansion. I'll say it that way. I think that's very tough to do. We've definitely had games that haven't done as well as I hoped or as I expected. Some games we published where I was like, I think this is going to be a solid game. I don't know if this will be an evergreen game. I want it to be, but I don't know if it'll quite get there. Between Two Castles, I would say, is the biggest surprise for me. I thought Between Two Castles was going to be a massive hit. I love the game. I really, really love the game, and I thought it was going to be bigger than it was. And but that's fine. I mean, it sold well. I think the goal is to bring joy to people. I think anyone who's tried it, or a lot of people who've tried it, it has brought joy to their tables. That's wonderful. And we recently released the expansion for it. So if you pre-order the expansion for Between Two Castles, Secrets and Soirees, you should have it at this point. Hopefully, you've had fun getting that to the table. It brought the game update players and also down to solo play. So if you have been looking for a game to play solo, I think Morton and his team did a wonderful job with a solo version of Secrets and Soirees. Ben thanked me for sending some games to SaltCon. Yeah, as conventions start to safely open up again, we are starting to safely send games to their play and win sections. We love play and win at Stonemaier Games. If you're not familiar with that, the concept of play and win is when a convention has a section of their library full of games that most of which have been donated from publishers, but also conventions also invest part of their budget in play and win because it is a key marketing strategy, I think. And whenever you play one of those games, you basically, through different means, you essentially put your name in a hat for that specific game. And near the end of the convention, one name is drawn from the hat for each game, and someone wins that game. So if you were interested in trying out Euphoria, you could check it out from the play and win section, play it, and actually have a chance at winning it. It's good for you because you have a chance at winning the game for free. It's good for the convention because they get to have a fun draw. They get to have a reason for people to play a lot of different games and try them and have fun at the convention and win some stuff. And it's good for the publisher too, especially if the convention has a vendor hall. Not necessarily, but it does help because if you don't win, it basically gives you a reason to try out a bunch of different games that you're curious about. And if you don't win, you might still buy it. In fact, I think the data that we've seen shows that sales definitely go up for games that are in play and win because not everyone can win each individual game. And so if you play a game, if you were the one that played Euphoria and you loved it but you didn't win it, you're probably more likely to actually buy it now because you gave it a chance. You gave it a chance to get it to the table. Or maybe you didn't enjoy it and then you know that you can focus on other games. It works. It's a win-win in so many different ways. I love play and win, and I'm looking forward to contributing to more conventions as they open back up safely. Tim says he's bringing his book tour to St. Louis next Friday. That's exciting, Tim. Coming to St. Louis for your book tour. Where are you doing readings for it or anything like that? What's your plan? Michelle says that they added two new kittens to their little family, or two little kittens to their normal sized family. She says, I've forgotten how energetic these little fluff balls can be. Oh, that's adorable. I love kittens. Richard says, I've been going through my game collection and beginning to reduce my titles. I'm curious if you ever go through to reduce your collection, and if you do, what criteria do you use? Yeah, I kind of do it on an ongoing basis now. I used to do it once a year. Now I do it on an ongoing basis. Basically, if games can't fit onto my shelves, I get rid of them, or I evaluate them and get rid of them. And the evaluation process that I use, it's been a little bit tough during the pandemic, is if I haven't played a game in a year and I don't think I will get it to the table in the near future, I give it away to someone who might enjoy it. I can always get it back if it's one that or I can always buy it again, basically, if it's one that I really want to get to the table in the future. But that's the criteria I use. If I haven't played it in a while and I don't think I will play it in the near future, then I give it to someone who is excited to receive it. And right now I'm kind of at that point. I have a few too many games on my shelf, and I need to give a few of them away. So the tough part is I found that it's a little tough to give games away. There are plenty of people who are willing to receive them, but it creates a shipping burden on whoever does it. If I ask for Joe to do it, my director of communications, it's kind of a burden for him to do it. It's a burden for me also to ship something that's, it's annoying to go through the shipping process. So I don't have a great way of doing that. I kind of wish there was a local place where I could just donate the games if I no longer want. So if any of you have any suggestions about that, let me know, especially if it's a great cause that we can donate to them to. And actually, I had a thought about that even as I'm saying that, so might try that. Giovanni says, actually, Richard, what's your, I don't know if you can, yeah, you can type right now, but what criteria have you found that you're using? What is helpful for you? And anyone else who's listening to this, what is your criteria when you decide that you need to get rid of a few games? What's your criteria, and how do you do it? Do you give them away? Do you sell them? What's your process? Giovanni says, if you were to play a Stonemaier game right after this livecast, what would you play? Are you planning to come to Origins? Well, right after this livecast, I'm going to put the livecast up on YouTube. I'm going to answer a few emails, and then I'm going to be hungry, so I'm going to eat lunch. So if I guess the question, another way of asking the question is, if I played a game during lunch, what game would I play? That isn't something Megan and I generally do during lunch. We usually relax and just watch a short show, but I'll throw one out. We'd play something light and short. Something like Mysterium Park is light and short. Maybe Fantasy Realm. Something just light and short. Matthias says, are you aware of the recent Scythe digital tournament? I am not. No, but that's awesome. How do you feel about people being so engaged and competitive with your design? It was very fun to see the engine and mechanisms pushed to the limit. As long as people know what they're getting into and they're having fun with it, I am happy for that. I didn't design Scythe for tournament play. I think that's a special area of design to design for that. But I love that. I mean, I'm flattered that people are having fun with it in that way. Cam says that they're loving Between Two Castles. I was talking about that a second ago, and the expansion. They play it all the time with their kids, and they all love it. That's wonderful to hear. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Patrick says maybe rather than creating an expansion, you can wait a little while and re-release it with expansions included and called improvements or upgrades. I don't know which game you're referencing there, Patrick, but yeah, that is a method to do of re-releasing the game, consolidating different elements, honing it a little bit. But we do a lot of that up front. I mean, we do as much as possible of that up front. I don't know if doing that necessarily can fix a game, can build a new audience for a game, can create positive marketing for a game. And you have to still be respectful to those who already bought into the game and not offer content that they like, not gate content that they need or that they want within a bigger box of stuff that they already have. That's, I think, the challenge there. Donna says, how do we contact someone to have a game sent to a convention? Great question, Donna. Go to our website and look up Play and Win. Let me see where I have the sign up for that. I should probably add that to one of our menus. Do I have it here? Okay, so under news, I have events and conventions. And okay, yeah, it's there. Okay, yeah, if you go to, so you're not contacting someone individually. You're filling out a form, or you're entering your information on a Google Doc, and it's specifically for Play and Win. We do not donate games to raffles. We don't donate games to game libraries. We donate them specifically to Play and Win because that I found is the best win-win-win situation for everyone involved. So go to our website and go to the news tab and then scroll down to events and conventions. And in the first paragraph, you can see the Google Doc that links to the Play and Win page. Let me make sure it links to the right page. It does not link to the right year right now, but I will fix that link while I'm talking through the next question. Actually, no, I won't. I will fix that in a minute afterwards. But it goes to the right page, but just not the right tab of that Google Doc. So make sure you go to 2021. Anthony repeats what I think is an important message. I mean, our philosophy, he says, the goal is to bring joy to people. He says that's such a fantastic perspective that really shines through in all that I see Still Mario games do. And yeah, it all comes back to that. That is such a helpful guidepost for me when I'm trying to figure out how to make the right decision for anything that we do, anything that we're making, a design choice, a price choice, a marketing choice. Is this bringing joy to people? We don't always accomplish that, but that is the guidepost. And when I remember that I think we're at our best when I remember that and when I'm guided by that. Tony says, you showed and discussed in a prior live chat that you were considering releasing replacement cubes for Red Rising due to the color production of the metal cubes in the collector's edition. Any update on that? They're in production now. I mean, it is really the only update. I don't know when they'll be ready, but they're being manufactured now, and I hope they will arrive by the end of 2022. But everything in production and freight shipping is pretty slow right now, so I don't know when they'll be ready. Fortunately, again, the cubes in the collector's edition are perfectly functional. They just aren't quite ideal under low light conditions, and people with even me, like I have perfectly good eyes, but in low lighting, the cubes can be a little confusing. So we just kind of separate them in the on the institute where we put them. I think the bigger problem, or the related problem, the reason it is a problem is that the lid for the insert in Red Rising doesn't fit as tightly as it should over the compartments for the cubes. You can actually turn the lid 90 degrees and it fits better, but at a certain orientation, the cubes can come out and slide around. And so in the box, they get mixed together, and that's where it's the most difficult to separate some of the cubes that are very similar colors. But yeah, we are working on just painted metal cubes, and we will have them on our web store hopefully later in 2022. Philippe says, what are you working on right now? Can you tell us more? We have a playtest that we're doing tomorrow for a product that we're working on. And I'm working on some of the release elements for Rolling Realms, the game that I will announce in early August. Mike says he's excited to have me and Alex on the podcast tomorrow. Yeah, we're going to be on Mike's podcast. Mike, feel free to post a link to the YouTube stream for that in the comments below. I will also post that in the Red Rising group tomorrow afternoon. Because we're going to be on a podcast that I think will be aired live on YouTube simultaneously. So if you have any questions during that live cast, we'll be able to answer them. But Mike, if that's correct, feel free to post the link in the comments below. David says, I know you have written about games in public libraries. Yeah, that was a recent post. Can you donate games to your local system? Generally, libraries don't accept donations. They buy the media that they provide. They buy the books, they buy the media, the CDs, they buy the movies, and hopefully they buy the games. They rarely accept donations, but they do accept money. Libraries often accept money. So if you want to donate to a library and say, I want this money designated towards your game collection, they will often be happy to do that. Yeah. Tim says he'll be at Tower Grove Park on the 16th at 5 o'clock, hoping to get something set up at Dunaway Books in the near future and an event at Joe's Cafe. He'll be in Missouri a number of times this year, making our way to Kansas City. That's awesome. Tower Grove, the 16th. So Tim will be here to do a reading or talk about his book at Tower Grove Park on the 16th here in St. Louis at 5 o'clock. 16th is what day of the week is that? Next Friday? Yeah, next Friday. That's great. I think that's when at Tower Grove Park that they have, I think that's Food Truck Friday. So that could be good for you or bad for you, Tim. They will have a crowd there, but it may also be kind of loud. So be prepared for that. Carol says, we're finally at the first time where our games have bled to upstairs shelves. And now I know I need to get rid of some. I'll look at the ones that we were given but never played and ones where I will always choose something different over it. Yeah, that's part of the process that I look at too. There are certainly games that I have that I've never played, and there's generally a reason that I haven't played them. Like I can't get excited to get to the table, and I think that's okay. We're not always going to be excited about every game. There are people out there who want those games, who are excited about them. So I think it's okay to give game or sell that game to someone who is excited about it. Omid says, how far ahead do you look in terms of having an expansion? Would you wait for a game to establish market success first and then start with that? I was talking about that a little bit earlier, Omid. I don't even start to think about expansions until a few months after a game has entered production, and generally not really until it has been received by pre-order customers and people are starting to play it and talk about it. And it does help. I think part of if I have any doubt about a game, I wait to see if it is successful on the market before working on an expansion, because it would not be ideal if we invested a lot into an expansion for a game that people really aren't enjoying, people aren't gravitating towards. So if I have any doubt about that, then I wait to see how the market receives it. Yeah. Philippe says, I guess Patrick's post was related to how to fix a game that could have done better, improvements on future printings. Would that be a solution to fix a game? Have you considered such a thing? I mean, for many of our printings of our games, we rarely do new editions for our games. We reprint them. We make more of them, and in many reprintings, we make tiny tweaks, not gameplay tweaks, but like tiny. We fix typos and things like that. Like, I guess an example here that people have asked about is, would you ever release a new version of Scythe that has, I don't know, slightly different configurations between faction mats and player mats and things like that? And I don't think so. Like, I don't think we need to do that. I don't think. I think there are certainly combinations inside that are more powerful than others, but the two most powerful, we've just outright said you can't use these combinations, and all the others are fine. In the hands of a skilled player, they will play just fine. So I'm happy with people to like house rule stuff like that if there's ever people feel a need for a house rule, but unless there's a need for like a major change in a rule, we would probably use an expansion to make that major change, or we would let the game go out of print and then print a new edition, which I try to avoid doing that at all costs. I try to get everything as close to being right and fun and intuitive and balanced in the first printing, and subsequent printings are just fixing typos and things like that. Or the first edition. Thank you, Mike, for posting a link to that interview. Appreciate that. Richard's the one who was thinking about culling his collection a little bit. He says, shelf space has a lot to do with his decision as well of reducing his collection. He says, I also ask myself if I'm emotionally attached due to nostalgia, or is it something I will play more than once in the future? Also, who am I going to play it with? Yeah, that's a big factor for me too, Richard. Yeah, I play a lot of my games, especially during the pandemic. I play a lot of games two-player with Megan. If it's not a game that Megan enjoys, that impacts my desire to keep the game. For example, well, I don't want to. There was a game that Megan didn't enjoy nearly as much as I did, and I ended up giving it away because I knew it wasn't going to get to the table, especially since it was a two-player only game. Richard says, again, and who I'm going to play with. My time is extremely limited, and I prefer to play with my wife. Games that take me away from my wife tend to find their way to the donation pile. Yeah, that's pretty much exactly what I said, except Megan isn't my wife. Yeah. Patrick says, speaking of metal game pieces, I've seen upgrades or deluxe pieces that are metal. Coins don't seem to be a problem, but other types of plain pieces might scratch the game board. Do you have an opinion on metal game pieces? I think that depends on how sharp they are. I mean, this can be the case with any game piece that has too sharp of a corner or an edge, whether it's plastic or metal. Plastic, I think, can have the same impact if you're dragging something across the board. So it's something to keep in mind regardless of the type of component. But yeah, you can also, metal components are so heavy that if you drop them on the board, they can dent the board. And yeah, that's what metal pieces do. Frank says he's found that dropping off no longer wanted games at a local charity store can be a good option. It removes shipping, the charity makes some money, and the end buyer typically gets a great bargain. I like that approach. Yeah. We have a Goodwill that's near us, so maybe that could be a solution for Goodwill. I just want to make sure it ends up in a good home. That's the general idea. Not that, and so I guess that there's no contradiction there, but oftentimes I try to give games to like Stonemaier ambassadors because I know how much they've given to us, and I try to give back to them. Let's see. David says, are you planning to back Distilled, medium weight Euro about distilling spirits? Yeah, Distilled is a Kickstarter campaign that is live right now. It's doing great, and it was one of the games that was featured at Stonemaier Games Design Day back in the fall. I got to play test it and offer some feedback about it. I haven't dived too deep into it. I had a very busy day yesterday, but I'm going to look into it today to see if it is a game that's a good fit for me. Yeah. This has been some great discussions today. Thank you all for joining us. Just to recap some of the things we talked about, I've been talking about how I'm working on Rolling Realms prep for the announcement coming up next month. I have a playtest coming up for tomorrow for a game that I've been working on, or product that I've been working on quite a bit. Talked about the nesting box and the fourth prototype, some of the things in the fourth prototype of the nesting box, the Wingspan nesting box. Recent plays of Charterstone, Groundhog Day, Abandon All Artichokes, Dice Miner, Crash Octopus, and City Builder. And recent blogs about gaming tutorials, great gaming tutorials like that are built into the game itself that let you just open the box and start learning and playing as you go. And blogs about stuff that we love here at Stonemaier Games that isn't made by us, and mental and physical health. And yeah, those are the key, I would say, Stonemaier and gaming related elements here. Thank you, David, for posting that link to Distilled. That's great. So I'm going to go ahead and post this video on YouTube. If you have any other follow-up questions or comments, that's the best place to put them. I will see those comments there. Looks like I have one last question here from John that I'll answer before I go. John says, is there an online class, videos, articles you like for helping people be better or more helpful playtesters? More helpful playtesters is tough. I do have an article about, I think if you search Stonemaier Games for selecting the best testers or selecting the best playtesters, you'll see an article about the types of things that we look for in a great playtester. But also someone earlier mentioned Justin Gary's series that is more about helping you be a better game designer. And also my YouTube series, I hope, where I talk about my favorite mechanisms and why they work, generally talk about why they work, not why they don't work. That hopefully can help you be a better designer if you want to focus on design. The better playtesters, look at my article for selecting the best testers. You'll see some information on that. And Carol says she highly recommends taking a look at the Tainted Grail tutorial. I need to do that. I learned Tainted Grail from a friend. I have played it, but I didn't use the tutorial, so I need to look at that and see how it worked. Awesome. All right. Thank you so much for joining me today. Have a wonderful Wednesday, and I will be back to see you next Wednesday. Take care. Bye.